comment.
Right? What do they call Surf bots? Surf
We're
bots.
making
Yeah, they're from
a new
Capcom.
Resident Evil. It
Oh.
was really difficult to figure out what to do after 7. But I found it. And to be honest, it feels substantial. I can't share any details just yet, but I hope you're excited for the day.
Wait, did we just get freaking Resident Evil 9 use? Wait, hold up. Shut the front door. No, wait, what?
Here's a quick roundup of the games we introduced today that will be launching soon.
He just teased that? Bro, what?
Kunitsugan,
We're
Path of the
rewinding.
Goddess,
But wait, I think
launches
it's
on
finishing,
July
but we're
19th,
rewinding. So, who was that? Was that the director of Resident Evil 7? Who was that? It's the guy with the hat. Wait, let's go back to see who that guy was specifically. Because this is a different guy. Like, they announced this guy. What's his name? This is Yoshinori Kawano, who's the director of Dead Rising. Oh, right here. Here we go. What does it say? I think he's the director of Resident Evil 7, isn't he? Director of RE7? Okay.
How did Capcom's 2 major zombie games, Dead Rising and Resident Evil 7, come
It's
to
certainly
be made
not
in the
Shinji.
first
No.
place?
Yeah, Shinji
We
hasn't
interviewed
been.
the directors of both
Shinji hasn't worked for
titles to learn
Capcom
more
since
about the games.
2005.
First, we have
right? Or
Koshi
2004?
Nakanishi,
So I
the
don't know.
distinguished director of
It's been a
Resident
long
Evil
time.
7. Follow along as he...
Director of Resident Evil 7 said that. Koshi Nakanishi. Interesting. So Koshi... So, if the director of Resident Evil 7... was he also the director of Resident Evil 8? Let's actually go back.
Shares
Koshi Nakanishi. Okay, let's actually search that right now. Koshi... Is it like that? Nakanishi? Koshi... Yep, exactly. Yeah. Koshi Nakanishi... Resident Evil 5, game designer, director of Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D, Resident Evil Revelations, and Resident Evil Biohazard. Oh, guys, if he directed Resident Evil Revelations, I wonder if he kind of went that route. Interesting. So he didn't direct Resident Evil 8. So obviously 8. I mean, 8 is completely different from. I mean, it's the closest to 7, but it obviously feels different. But the fact that he directed Revelations, I wonder if we're going to have a combination of Resident Evil 7 and Revelations. Obviously, it kind of begs the question, are we going to get Resident Evil 7 to be like, is it going to be first person? I doubt it, honestly. I think, to be honest, especially with the Shadow of Rose, with going back to third person, and especially with RE4 remake, the success of that, and also the other remakes. I mean, if you obviously you don't want to count RE3 there with RE3 remake and that bunch, but regardless, it seems that it is going to be third person, but that's interesting. I mean, are we going to see components of Revelations of Resident Evil 7 in the new one? What characters? I mean, it's cool that Capcom basically said, and they basically announced it. Like, this is the only time they've ever spoken on it. Obviously, we've known. Like, of course, like they're working on a next one, right? They're working on another one, but it's interesting, right? It's interesting that he teased it. So that means that it almost seems like we might be getting it next year. We might be getting an announcement maybe at the end of the year, maybe at the Tokyo Game Show, right? Who mentioned that earlier on? Was that Kenneth? Yeah, but anyways, it's interesting, right? I mean, it's interesting that they teased that. This was totally out of left field, but as mentioned, it's not like a big surprise. We of course knew that was going to happen, but this is awesome. Yeah. RE7's director being the one working on the next Resident Evil has kind of worried me, not gonna lie. But I mean, especially since Resident Evil 7 was so different. But I think what saves it there is that since Revelations was very different as well, but he also worked on Mercenaries. It's interesting that he worked on Mercenaries 3D, but he didn't there was no game mode like that for Resident Evil 7. I mean, as good as the Mercenaries. Obviously, Resident Evil 7 did have like their own little, basement kind of Mercenary. It kind of sucked in my opinion. Compared to Mercenaries 3D was honestly is the best way to play Mercenaries in my opinion. I think after it's like probably like Resident Evil 4 OG, Resident Evil Remake, I guess now I haven't put into the list. And then obviously, you have 5 and 6, which had tremendous, great Mercenaries. So yeah, guys, it's interesting. Yeah, it does kind of have some worries, but I think Koshi Nakanishi knows what he's doing, right? I mean, obviously, if they are going to go that direction, I hope that it's not first person, because if it's first person, I don't really like that, honestly. But I think with everything I've seen, it seems there's a lot more evidence to suggest that it is going to be third person. Obviously, and especially with with PlayStation partnering up with Resident Evil, slash Capcom, and adding VR support, VR2 support, I should say. It does kind of yeah, it makes me less worried about that, about it being just first person again, because Resident Evil has to be third person. I don't know. We've always had Resident Evil in third person. When we've had Resident Evil in first person, it just doesn't feel the same, like with the Gun Survivor games, with Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8. But Resident Evil 8 even went back on that and added the third person mode, which felt like a mod. But at least they went back, especially with Shadow of Rose. So yeah, I ain't playing first person anymore. Exactly. Yeah, I want RE to be more horror. Him being in charge means we're getting horror game for RE9. Exactly. That's another excellent point, Kenneth. That's a very good point. Resident Evil 7, one of the reasons why I actually didn't like it as much was because it was more on the horror side of things. It was trying to push the boundaries of Resident Evil, especially when you had like moments in Resident Evil 7 where like the guy, like Jack would show up all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like it like, he'd pop up. There was a lot of like not jump scares, but I guess just like it was very like, it almost seemed like you were like in a haunted house. You know what I mean? Like that's the best way I would say it, where there was moments where they kept trying to do that, where it's like, is this haunted? Is this? But obviously, since it's Resident Evil, it's grounded in sci-fi science, right? Like, pseudoscience. That's not the case, but yeah. I mean, I wonder if Koshi Nakanishi had a hand to play on House Beneviento in Resident Evil 8. Did he? I don't think so. It seems like he might not have. Yeah, he might. I don't think he did. Right? It doesn't say here. This is Resident Evil Wiki, so yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. But yeah. I played Resident Evil 8 in first person. I wasn't impressed. Yeah, third person is the best for Resident Evil. Yeah, I'm tired of first person. Yeah, leave first person for Call of Duty, not Resident Evil. Exactly. It's going to be third person horror game like RE2 in my opinion. Yeah, it has to be, right? I mean, everybody prefers it third person. That's the way it's been since the beginning, except for, like Gun Survivor games. Like, yeah, or like I didn't even mention the Chronicle games as well, right? Umbrella Chronicles, Darkside Chronicles, those are fun, but I mean they were more rail shooters, right? Even Gun Survival was more of a rail shooter. It wasn't the same as Resident Evil 7, which wasn't a rail shooter. It was actually just moving around in first person, so it's a little different. But yeah, so yeah, Resident Evil 8 in third person is awesome. Yeah, I hope we play as Jill in Resident Evil 9 once more. Or Ada. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's been such a long time since we've seen Jill in a game. Obviously, we did see her recently in 2015. That's when the timeline is set for Resident Evil Death Island. By the way, guys, I'm actually working on a Resident Evil Death Island video at the moment, so that might be releasing next week. We'll see, or the week after. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. RE8 and third person is awesome. I hope we play as Jill in Resident Evil 9. Resident Evil 7 has too many unskippable cutscenes for me. Yes, that's an excellent point, Captain Treehead. That's something that I was hearing my brother really complain about, was the fact that it was so annoying. It was so bad that, yeah, it was so bad that you couldn't skip cutscenes. Obviously, they changed that. They did change it with Resident Evil 8. They added that for the remakes, right? RE2, RE3, RE4. But yeah, RE7 just didn't, right? It was the first one of the new RE engine, and it just did not. It was awful. Maybe it's more dev time because they'll have options for both. Yeah, I don't know. I found 8 more fun. Or you're suggesting that perhaps that it might be first and third person, and so that might cause it to be more. I don't know. I don't know if it will. I mean, I'm not a game developer, but to me, it does seem like it's just if you have the camera set in one location and then going back to first person, because there's some games where you can switch to first person, go to third person. I think if you've locked it in and have different angles of the camera, I don't think it would be too hard, but I don't know. Yeah. Resident Evil 7 enemies are so lame. Jack carry that game. Yep. No, 100% agree. Yeah, the enemies was one of the things that I hated. Like, there was no variation. You just fought the same mold virus dudes the whole game. Lord Viglar says, I'm hoping more for static game camera angles of the old games. You know what? I'm actually shocked that hasn't been an option to go back. Almost like, like Resident Evil 5, where they added like that cool, like, fixed camera angle in Lost in Nightmares. They should do that for more of the game. You know what I mean? First, especially, with, who else is doing that? Well, and in a version of doing that is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. That game, you actually have the option of either doing modern controls or modern like camera angles, where it's like over the shoulder, you know, almost like Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain, or you could switch back to the classic Metal Gear, you know, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater or Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, where it's almost like backed off, where you can actually see the character like more. And I don't know how to explain it, but if you guys have played those games, it's more backed. Honestly, the new Resident Evil would be really cool if they added that as like a bonus filter, a bonus, I guess, like angle at the end of playing the game. That would be really cool. They should do that, honestly. Yeah. First with Leon and Resident Evil Vendetta and Infinite Darkness, then with Chris, Leon and Claire and Resident Evil RE Death Island. Man, it's getting annoying with all these plot armors. I mean, that's just Resident Evil, right? Lady Hugo says, yeah, whatever. Whenever I think of trying Resident Evil 7 again, I remember the boring first 30 minutes. I'm like, nah. Yeah. And oh, you know what I think of? I think of the ship. I think of the ship in Resident Evil 7, which I'm like, yeah, that's not a great time. Smorkle GG, how's it going, man? Thank you so much for stopping by, dude. He says, hi, bro. How are you? Doing good. We just got Resident Evil teaser, which I didn't expect. We got so much content on Dead Rising. I'm so hyped, man. It's coming in September, guys. I'm gonna try to get early access from Capcom since I am a Capcom creator. We'll see how that goes.